Is your attitude worth catching?
I guess I better answer yes to that. So I'm going to answer yes.
Good. I feel positive vibes from you. I like catching your attitude. I always feel good when I go. So your attitude is worth catching, Steve.
It
but
is.
Not everybody's is.
Well, and I'm glad to be back on another episode because every time I spend time with you, I catch a little bit of your attitude, which is, it is prime. It is supreme. It is blue chip. It is first rate.
Wow, that's a lot of positive adjectives in there. I'm feeling groovy now.
Feeling groovy. That's a
feeling
groovy. There's a 70s.
Hey,
there's an old song, feeling groovy song, but yeah, let's don't go to that. So I mean, you asked, is your attitude worth catching? And of course, we're the Stop Parenting, Start Coaching podcast. This is directed towards the parents. So parents, we're pulling out a friendly bow and arrow and firing this at you. What are we really talking about here? What are we really talking about here, Nate, in this episode?
Talking about genuine optimism, really bringing it for your family and setting the tone that is going to help you and your family and your high performing teens and athletes to really be able to maximize their potential, because optimism is the only way to do that.
So we're basically
set the right tone. That's what we're after.
Sure. We're basically asking them we want them to evaluate themselves right now and ask themselves, what tone
this is
are
a
you
little
setting? High flame. Yeah. What tone are you setting for your teens and for your family? And this really ties into 2 episodes that we did in our mindset series, fairly recent episodes. And any new listeners, it would be really helpful for you to go back to episodes 48 and 49, where we talk about optimism and then intention. But we're going to take a little bit different angle here today and not just talk about optimism, but really, parents, how can you model this for your teens? And you'll see why. It may be fairly obvious, but we're going to get into some nerdy stuff where you understand why it really is critical that you are great modelers of optimism for your teens.
Yep. So critical.
This
if a family does it wrong, then
if a family does it wrong, I wasn't going to go there, but I think, should I?
Yeah, the less effective example. Share the less effective example.
Okay. Have you met? I know you've met them, Nate, but I'm going to ask you because we're talking to the parents. This question is for you too, but you're actually the only person I can see right now, so I can't see any of them. Have you met the D family? The D family.
The D family.
Yeah,
what? I'm kind of familiar with them.
The parents are degrade and despair. Yikes.
Yeah.
Do you know they have 5 children, big family.
That's a big family. Their kids aren't much brighter.
Yeah, the oldest child, disappointment, and then it goes on from there. Debacle, dysfunction, disaster. And they name their last child Discouraged. No wonder. I mean, he or she is discouraged because, I
mean, there's got to be some hope for this family, though, right? Like everybody has like a pet or something that makes them feel better. Does this family have a pet that helps them?
They have a dog, but
that's good. Dogs bring a lot of joy.
Sure, but I mean, he answers to Downer.
Great. Well, music always brightens a family. I mean, what kind of music do they listen to? Is there something good that they get out of that? Or
now we're getting into dad jokes. I mean, they're fans of 80s rock. Their favorite band is Dire Straits.
Okay, that's usually really good. Oh, that's not so good. Well, this family is doomed.
Yeah.
See what I did
Oh,
there with
there
the
we go.
D?
Another D
Anyway,
word. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we are
But
determined. We are determined to help them turn this around. So
yep.
it really
So
begins
how
with
do
the
we help them set
parents.
a better tone?
Well, it begins
Yes.
with the parents. And I think number one is they need to be able to, well, before we hit some key directives, another D word, do a quick review for us, Nate, on what is the difference between optimism and straight positivity.
Well, you hear it called toxic positivity, and people don't want to be called toxically positive, and so they tend to avoid that. But genuine optimism is being able to look for a beneficial or better direction in the face of adversity. So it's acknowledging, it's a willingness to acknowledge that things aren't great right now. This sucks. What we're going through is not the best, but it's keeping a positive outlook in light of those things. So it's not about denying reality or, faking it or anything like that. It's like, okay, yeah, this does stink. How can we get better? What can we do next to start moving in a better direction?
Excellent. So I think one thing parents should do, is definitely consider doing is modeling critical thinking.
Yeah.
Anything come to mind when I say model critical thinking?
Um, don't don't use it in a way where it's like justification for being critical of people, overly critical, because that's criticism. Critical thinking and criticism are two very different things. And so when we do this as parents, we want to make sure that we're modeling. It's things like looking at like if you're watching news together as a family, it's like, okay, is there any bias involved in this? What's the perspective of the person presenting this story? What's the perspective of the other people? And getting them to evaluate some of those things can be a way to model critical thinking. Bringing in other people's perspective is big there.
We're really big on the fact that honesty is critical in relationships, and all progress starts with the truth. The
Amen.
road to transformation is paved with honesty. And if you just jump to conclusions, if you are just always reactive and you aren't taking a more measured approach and a more balanced approach and thinking about things critically, your kids are going to tend to do that as well.
Yeah. We always set the tone. We're always modeling for our kids. You're on 24/7. We talk about this a lot. It's the hardest job on planet Earth because you are on 24/7. You're always on display and you will be replicated.
You will be replicated. Yeah. Okay,
You
here's
will be
another one.
replicated, whether like you're go for it.
Well, you love this one, and well, I love it too. And this is definitely part of something that we encourage, and you'll find it in many of our tools, thinking tools that we have for parents. And that is encouraging curiosity.
Yeah.
So how does this
Curiosity trumps
factor into
judgment. When you as a parent catch yourself getting judgmental, ask questions. Because that's how you diffuse judgment is by going to curiosity, and curiosity shows up as questions. So if you as a parent are curious and you're asking questions, like even if you're watching something and you're asking your spouse a question about it, you're modeling for them the power of asking questions rather than criticizing or being judgmental. And honestly, the best thing for parents to do is take that approach to their kids, because one of the biggest complaints I get from the kids that I work with is they feel very judged by their parents, which means the parents are probably doing more telling them rather than asking them questions. And so it's when you ask your kids questions, that's a super powerful model for encouraging them to ask questions as well.
right? Yeah, leading with questions, leading with curiosity. And if you're doing that as parents, your kids are going to see this.
Yep.
And so it's not going to be a foreign experience for them to do it themselves, or if when you get in a conversation with them, they're going to just see this as, yeah, this is the way my parents approach this. They're going to get curious and ask questions. Love it. Okay. What about encouraging reflection? I think this one is great when it comes to post-competition, and also when we have to deal a lot with the comparison game and the opinions of others, especially as teens in high school. I mean, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
So encouraging reflection.
And the question, your questions encourage their reflection. So you kind of marry the two together. As a parent, are you asking the questions, well, why do you feel that way? What are you proud of that you did in there? What was your most confident moment during that game? What are you, who's somebody on your team that did something that helped you out? What decision did your coach made that you loved today? And again, you can angle these in a positive direction and encourage the positive reflection, because kids are really good at being critical of themselves. So if you can help them by encouraging some beneficial reflection, that can help out a lot.
I really love that question. What was your most confident moment?
Yeah, that's a great one.
That opens up the conversation for many, many good things to
I love that one.
emerge.
And I love the question, what are you most proud of? Because no matter what they did during any performance or game, what are you most proud of? Getting them to look back and be like, yeah, I was proud of when I did this.
Right. Because there is something that they did well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. You had something to say?
I did. I don't want to leave that idea, because comparison's one of the big demons that pops up for all of us, as we all get stuck in that idea of comparison. And really the only person we want to compare ourselves to is ourselves. And how much have we progressed? What are we proud of? And so those questions help directly deal with that idea of comparison. And you don't even have to address it. You just have to ask the right questions, and getting them to look at themselves, the reflection within themselves naturally will help them avoid the comparison. I just wanted to make sure we highlighted that, and why this is such a powerful thing, because doing this, encouraging the beneficial reflection, you're actively teaching, modeling, and showing them how to avoid the comparison that's dangerous.
I think that's a really, really critical point. That's a gold nugget right there. Because as parents, you might want to just go directly to what you think they should be proud of and say that, and it's going to be much better coming from your team. And then you can
create it, it sticks.
And then better. you can support it afterwards and agree with them. Yeah, I really love that. I noticed that. That was awesome. Okay, last thing is, when we're talking about modeling critical thinking and optimism, the idea of being solution oriented rather than problem oriented. How do we model being solution oriented and getting them to focus on problem solving instead of problem lingering? I don't know. Problem
one
pondering.
Simple, powerful question. One simple, powerful question. What is the next right step? What's the next right step? And that I mean, you're not invalidating the problems. You're not saying, oh, don't worry about that. It's like, okay, great. What's the next right step? And it guides them to being solution, because you have to think about, what are we going to do next? We can't change what's happened. What's the next right step? It's a very present focused thing. We always talk about playing present. You hear that a lot. Playing present is very much about, what are we going to do next? What's our next right step?
Perfect. Okay, our next right step is we have some nerdy stuff that you're gonna like.
Yeah.
And then some more fun stuff. I remember when and I can't remember the exact place that you came across this. It's in one of the hundreds of books you read or podcast or something, but we were talking one day when we had got together to work, that you said something like, I'm so grateful to be within 20 feet of you, or something like that. And you were talking about the actual proximity, the distance.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why so nerdy? Why so specific? And you were referring to a Harvard study that showed that when you are actually within close physical proximity of another high performer or a high performer, maybe you're even a low performer and you're in proximity of a high performer, that your level of performance increases. So,
Yeah.
I mean, without going into
There's
all the
some really
details
nerdy
of,
stuff in here.
there is, okay, well, hit it. And as
So
Nate hits this,
let's go
parents
Cliff.
go Cliff Notes. But Nate, as you hit this, I want the parents to be very mindful of why this is so important that they are high performers.
So you have the phrase, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most with, or I like to say you're the average of the 5 people that you value the most. But the ideas behind it, the nerdy psychology stuff, gets into things like mirror neurons. And our brains have these mirror neurons where we see and we do. So like if you're sitting there smiling, that's why we do it to babies all the time. We sit there and we smile at a baby and those mirror neurons kick in and the baby smiles back. And it doesn't necessarily know why, it just smiles back. And, or if a baby smiles at us, we smile because we tend to reflect those things. And what's that feeds into a broader concept called neural synchronization. And in neural synchronization, our brains as herd animals, that's what we are ultimately. As herd animals, we have this drive on a biological level for our brains to kind of sync up. So when we hang out with people, our brains sync up and we start to kind of think more alike, talk more alike, be more alike. And you know this because you've hung around people and you start to pick up on some of their idiosyncrasies. I know if I'm hanging around kids too much, I start using phrases like no cap or facts or things like that. And I'm just hanging around them too much. And I hope I wear off on them if we're hanging around too much too and give them some nerdy stuff to say. But that's the process. It's neural synchronization. And so we tend to sync up with the people we're around. That being said, when you as a parent are around your kids and you spend the time with them that you want to and you should be spending with them, you set the table for this neural synchronization. So it's critical that you as a parent are modeling the right things because their brains are going to sync up with yours. If you go to the negative stuff, if you're hypercritical and judgmental all the time, that's where they're going to go as well. Is that the Cliff Notes version? Did that cover the basis?
Neural synchronization.
Neural synchronization. Yeah.
Wow, great stuff, Nate. Okay, let's finish with
We're
Trevor.
Wired to be social animals.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish with Trevor Moawad. We're fans of this gentleman. Wrote some very interesting books. He's very high profile mental performance coach with multiple colleges, including Alabama football and the Seattle Seahawks specifically when and with Russell Wilson. Unfortunately, Trevor has passed away. I think it's been a couple of years now at a young age, unfortunately passed away due to cancer. But he wrote a book called Neutral Thinking that we absolutely devoured and loved. And he talked about how he grew up. His dad was just the perfect model or near perfect model of optimism and intention. And he actually put his kids on what he called a negativity diet. And it was real interesting. Well, there's one thing that was real interesting in the negativity diet. The other two things were rather no-brainers, but he did not allow them to watch TV news, which I like because
no brainer.
I mean, TV news is their goal is to create fear, to scare you,
get you mad or get you scared. Yeah, get you mad
anger,
or get you scared, or both.
For sure. So no TV news, no country music, and he described the reason why he said no country music was he said that it tend to, this is when we'd be talking about you lose your truck, you lose your girlfriend, you go drink yourself into oblivion. And then the other thing was, well, two things. They could not complain and they could not ever say that they couldn't do something. So what are your thoughts on that, Nate?
Well, it's a high bar. That's really hard to do. And as a parent, like, you got to be really on your game, because if you're going to do something like that, you got to model it. I would extend the music thing. I don't think country music has a monopoly on crappy lyrics that make us think poorly. So I would encourage, and this gets back to one of our earlier episodes, the intention one in 49.
Right. Is it
just
uplifting?
Really, really evaluate what's the music. And so, they specifically focused on country music, but yeah, I love it. I think it's an incredibly high standard, and it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Trevor, and he did this as an adult, he decided to go off the negativity diet and actually chose to consume those things as a little test. It's almost like the Morgan, I can't remember his last, Morgan Spurlock, who did I know it really well, when he ate McDonald's. Supersize Me.
Supersize Me.
So Trevor Moawad did this, but he consumed the country music, he consumed the TV news, and he started speaking about things that he thought he couldn't do, and he became a complainer. And he did this over the course of, I think, about a month, and his girlfriend at the time started to notice the people as he started to doubt himself consistently, and he started to just he said that near the end, he had this emotional melancholy and he actually became physically ill. And so he reversed course and he's like, okay, my dad, thanks, Bob Moawad. Thanks for modeling this. And I now have actual proof that what my dad was modeling for me is great and is recommended. And so he went off of the negativity diet, which brings up he said something else too. Do you recall what he said about verbalization?
Well, and there's some great psychology and science behind this too. So this isn't just somebody spitballing, but there's weight in our brains to the things that we say. So like, if a positive comment that we say to ourselves, if that has a weight of 1, if we say a negative comment to ourselves, it actually has a weight that's 4 to 7 times greater than the positive one that we had.
Brutal.
And so you have this unbalance, and this is just in our head. So like, if we're thinking these things, the next level to that is the verbalization of it. If you say it out loud, it becomes 10 times more powerful than if you just think it in your head. So that positive comment, if you say it out loud, has a weight of 10. But a negative comment said out loud now has a weight of 40 to 70 times more than just saying that positive comment inside your own head. So it's like, and he would teach this to the teams he would work with. It's a great phrase. Stop saying stupid stuff out loud.
Correct.
And it gets at that idea of the negativity diet. If you say negative stuff out loud, it leaves a mark.
Yeah, the math is definitely not on our side there. You mentioned teams. They had a rule when he was working with Alabama football during their heyday. I mean, Nick Saban just retired, but during all their national championship runs, incoming freshmen had to go through a sort of a mental mindset type of course when Trevor was working with them. And one of the things they specifically did was, you couldn't say stupid things out loud, and they would police themselves and they would teach the older players to correct this and remind younger players that, I mean, for example, let's say you're a receiver and you drop a pass and you say something negative out loud, which is it's like, I'm so stupid, or I mean, looking at your hands and just saying,
I can't catch the ball.
Right. And they would be quickly corrected. And I mean, obviously, they had great coaching, incredible talent, but I believe another edge that they created for themselves was they avoided saying stupid things out loud.
And parents can do that for their families. Parents can set that tone. They can model that. As a parent, are you being too critical of yourself? I'd love to run to Creation Corner now if we can.
Okay. I would love to go to Creation Corner too.
Yay. It's one of my favorite places we go. What can the parents create to help out with this?
So this is a real simple one, Nate, and we'll finish up with this. What plan can you create to intentionally bring optimism into your life? Or maybe a better way to say this is, because this will get them to really zero in, I believe. We'll just use Trevor's phrase for this, Trevor's dad's phrase for this.
Great idea.
What will your negativity diet be? What will your negativity diet be? So you have to, in this terms, diet, we're not talking about what you're going to consume. We're talking about what you are not going to consume. So what are you not going to consume?
Or not allow within your family. Like it's, what's the language going to be like? We're going to avoid doing this. We're going to avoid saying these things. We're going to avoid watching this, doing this, listening to. This should lead to some fun conversations with your kids about the music they listen to.
Yeah, we would love to hear your negativity diets. Like, what are you putting on your list?
Share those.
Send them to us at createtransformbecome, all one word, @gmail.com. Any final thoughts, Nate?
Look forward to hearing from you. You can do this. I wore this shirt for this episode for a reason. You can do this. And I hope it's subliminally been in the background, but it's hard. And most of us, I know I get trapped in that complaining and negativity. It's having the elite mindset. It's really hard to do, but that's what we signed up for as parents. This is the hardest job on planet Earth, but you can do this and set the tone you want to for your family.
On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning into this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.